Good afternoon and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Conenna. Today, we are proud and honored to have an afternoon guest on the podcast. It's the host of Keeping It Real with Frankie D, Frank DiPiero. Keeping It Real with Frankie D is an Italian-American podcast that Frank has been running for many years here in the Chicagoland area, but you'll be surprised to know that Mr. DiPiero is involved in a lot of things that we're going to touch base on, and it's really been an honor for me, because if it wasn't for Frank, I don't think I would have started my own podcast, and the way he has motivated me to do my thing. And I got to tell you, this was a long overdue, Frank, and I have to ask you, how are things going, young man, and what's going on?
No, things are going good. It's somewhat, a word I don't use a lot, bizarre, with this entire, podcast and all these things that, I mean, if you would have, I did start it in 2013, but even when I started it, I really didn't even know it was a podcast, because I didn't know what a podcast was. And what it's somewhat evolved into, it's like I say, it's brought me to different avenues of a little bit of writing, a little bit of creating, a little bit of videos, and all kinds of things.
Well, I gotta tell you, just tremendous. Now, to think here, I thought it was maybe 2016, 2000. It's already 10 years have passed by, and that is amazing, because every time I do something now, I say, oh, I think that was 2 years ago. I think that was 5 years ago, everything else. Hey, I want to go back, of course, to Keeping It Real with Frankie D, your Italian-American podcast. But I got to tell you, for the people that don't know you, you touched on something really cool here. You are involved in a lot of things. And I have to put it this way. The things that you're involved in are really good things for the community. But I want to talk about a place that maybe you might remember, just to touch base on it. And Frank, you're born and raised in the United States, correct? Or were you born in Italy? That's the part I
No, I was born in Chicago.
In Chicago, right? And I know you've always been in and around this area.
Yeah,
I got to tell you, to start it off tonight, what does the address 4357 Western Avenue mean to you?
Northwestern Avenue.
Yeah, Northwest. Yeah. Northwestern Avenue. What does that mean to you, that address?
Oh, that's the corner of Montrose Avenue and Western Avenue, and that was a huge part of my life for decades. And that was the home of Jerry's Grill, a family business. My father had started it in 1963. It was, it's probably one of the last, I mean, we closed it, but it was one of the last real authentic Chicago diners. We call them Greasy Spoons, and started in 1963 in that location on Montrose and Western, and we were open 24 hours a day. Honest to God, just about every day of the year, Christmas, every day, 365 days a year, and we were there for 57 years.
Wow.
So,
Frank, when did you get involved? When does it start for you, Jerry's Grill?
Probably around 88.
Wow, okay.
Probably around 1988.
Where you're pretty much going there every day, and it becomes the full-time thing for you.
Yeah, definitely. And towards not so much then, but like towards the end, my dad was getting sick a lot, and I mean, obviously he was in and out of the hospital all the time, and he just wasn't there that much. And then he passed away, and I kept it going. And I like to think that it was a small part of a lot of people's lives.
Yes.
And I always say, hey, we were there 57 years, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. You could walk in with, 2 quarters and stay 5 hours. when it was cold out, we had heat. When it was hot out, we had air if it wasn't broke. There was somebody to talk to.
Right.
There was people to listen to. There was, even like Christmas Day. I mean, a lot of people have nowhere to go on Christmas Day. So it was good. We were open. We were there, and we became, like I say, a small part of a lot of people's lives. And, ironically, today, and I'm not making this up, I'm at Mariano's in the neighborhood, and a guy stops me. He goes, "Hey," he goes, "aren't you the guy that had the place on Montrose and Western?" And I go, "Yeah." And he kind of looked familiar. He used to come in there, and I guess he ended up moving in this neighborhood now. So no, I'm proud of it. I feel that it will be somewhat a small part of Chicago history.
Yes. And I'll tell you, when I met you, and I think I met you around 2017, 2018, and just like the 4 or 5 times I came there after you had interviewed me on your podcast, boy, what a great field, what a great place. Frank, where I'd like to go with this, and I really do think it stems from your upbringing, of course, with your parents, and of course, working at that grill. You have a lot of devotion, a lot of, you're always involved in helping the community. Jerry's Grill, you just explained it. Hey, there were people there that could bring 2 quarters and sit there 5 hours a day. It was small little families, guys that, would probably read the paper at those stills all day, or just, but the thing that amazed me about you, and especially when I first met you, was your devotion to the community. And I do mean that. I mean, meaning you have been so hands-on with so many different things. I mean, I interviewed a gentleman a few months back, and I says, "Hey, I think we're going to need a part 2." When I look at my notes here today, Frank, I'm thinking, okay, I think already we're going to have to do a part 2. Just tremendous. When I first met you, the thing that stood out about you was you had told me, because of your devotion for our Italian heritage and our Italian culture, the thing that stands out to me about you, you said, "John, I went to Italy one year, and it was the turning point for me as Frank DiPiero." You kind of want to elaborate on that trip and what it brought to you now?
Well, I'm assuming it probably was the very first trip.
That very first trip.
You can never, the first of anything can never be duplicated, unfortunately or fortunately. So yeah, the first time I went, I was 19 years old, and I really wanted to go. And it was a epiphany. It was everything. Prior to going, when somebody asked you, "What are you?" I would have said I was Italian. Growing up, and I'm sure you can add to this, you didn't say Italian American.
No,
we were Italian. Like, we were Italian, they were Irish, they were Polish, and we were proud of it. We were in heavily Italian areas, and it just was a big part of our lives. So now I go to Italy, and for the first time in my life, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not like them. You know what I mean? I have an American passport.
right.
And that's when the whole Italian American thing, I really caught on. But no, going to Italy, that first trip was just amazing. I mean, it just, like, I can recall that feeling when I was standing on a corner in Rome. I'll never forget it till the day I dropped dead. And I was fortunate because I went with a really good friend who, he basically was Italian. I mean, he had gone to it. We were 19. He had probably been to Italy like 24 times.
Wow.
And I mean, he had a girlfriend in Rome, and his parents had a place there. And I mean, he spoke fluent Italian, and he was the perfect guy to go with. I was very lucky. So we go together, and he had a girlfriend in Rome. And then we go to where she lived in her apartment, one of those giant Roman buildings with, all these apartments. And I can remember walking into their apartment. I remember the initial things we talked about. I remember what they cooked. And it was like a dream. It was like a dream because, you got to remember this. I went in 1986. Well, 1986, you know as well as I do, there were no computers and internet.
No,
We
nothing.
weren't looking up Italy and zooming
Googling.
down at that Google thing and all that. That didn't
Right.
exist. So Italy was something you saw in a movie, in a magazine, and it was up here in your mind.
Right.
So when I, go there in 86, this is like, holy crap, I'm standing in Italy. Like I just couldn't believe it. And it was just tremendous. And I stayed 2 months. And I got to be honest with you, John, I was like, okay, I got to get back here. So
I mean, as soon as you came back, you wanted to go back, right?
I did. And I did want to, and I did. I got back in like, say, August. By January, I'm back in Italy. So like literally 5 months later, I'm back. Now this time I'm there for 5 months.
Oh.
I mean, I'm like ready to almost like live there. I got to be honest.
What was Frank, not to interrupt you, but what was that turning point? What was that thing that kind of said to Frank DiPiero, it grabbed you?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I was always very, I was always like, it was a big part of me. It was my identity and I was proud and I was all that. Going to Italy just took it to like another stratosphere. Like it was, I mean, here's the place. I'm in Italy and now, and I mean, I gotta be honest. I mean, I had a girlfriend and I mean, like, I was like ready to like, I mean, I just loved it. I just loved it. So, went in 87, 5 months, went in 88. So I was a very lucky guy, no doubt in my mind. And those were great trips. And, it had a lasting effect. And I think that's why one of the things that really motivates me, and I don't know if we'll ever be able to accomplish it. I'm going to keep trying. But one of my big things is, I'm involved with the Italian community. Yes. And due to the computer and, Zooms and social media, it's the Italian community isn't just Chicago anymore. It's like you're kind of involved nationally because I've been on lots of Zooms with people all over the country. And the big thing with our community is the lack of the youth having interest and getting involved. And so many, clubs and organizations, and they do the same old things and it's not working. And, they give the scholarships. There's nothing wrong with giving scholarships. It's very nice. But to giving the scholarship to $2,500, to $2,000, that's nice. That'll help somebody pay for a class or two, maybe one, actually. What am I saying?
Yeah, at the end of the day,
class, a book. But it's not going to make an effect on them, ethnically speaking. And I've done some research and I've come to the conclusion the best way to affect our youth, ethnically speaking, is to, as a community, have organized trips to Italy. It
very true.
Make the biggest effect on them. And the more people I talk to, it's countless. I said my story. At 19, I went. Many people have that same type of story. At 20, at 21, I went. Oh my God, it changed me forever. And it's such a common thing. And it's something that, I haven't been able to sell very well, this idea, but I'm going to keep plugging. You know what I do? I have like lots of ideas and I put this one in the back of my head because I know this needs this big time. But if you got this is a doable thing and it would make an impact. So I'm going to keep trying with it because I believe in my heart of hearts, that's the answer. We're always looking for the answer. And, I always say it, going to an Italian fest, having a sausage sandwich, that's not going to change somebody ethnically.
No.
It's a nice thing. It's great. And, I encourage more youth to go to the Italian fest, but that's not the answer. The answer is send them to Italy, and we should be doing that.
And I want to say this to you. You are such a strong leader in our community. Where you got this work ethic, was it from your parents, Jerry's Grill? Was it from this trip? But you are a strong leader in our community. But again, I don't want to use the word problem, but if we had, let's say, designated more people like you, I think there would be more of a cohesiveness of how to do things. You know, you get the people, Frank, and tell me if I'm wrong. Yeah, yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, I'll help you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then before you know it, everything is cracking and crumbling. When you went on this trip, did you ever think in your wildest dreams or the times you went to Italy that you would have accomplished what you've accomplished now from these trips? Because you took a lot from these Italy trips and you hit, the wheels are always turning with you, Frank.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I appreciate the words, and I believe me, I'm nobody. I mean, I try to do my part. That I do. But I mean, no, I didn't know back then, but it kind of molded the entire creation, for lack
Right.
of a better description. I ended up going 5 times. I did 2 more trips. Well, okay, after the 3 trips, then I went on my honeymoon, and then we went back a few years after that. And then with Jerry's Grill, there was no going to Italy. I like
Right.
to say there was no going to the Wisconsin Dells. There
Yeah,
was
yeah,
that,
right, exactly. Yeah.
but yeah, no, it definitely had a big effect on me, and yeah, it definitely molded me, and I mean, with all the Italian stuff, it went to everything. I mean, where you live, your school, your neighborhood. I just feel like if everybody gave back just a little, it would be a big difference, because we all want great things. We want the neighborhood to be great. We want the school to be great. We want our ethnic group to be great. We want our club, our organization, our society to be great. Well, then we got to
Right.
do something. You got to do something.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean? And, since we just had Easter and Good Friday, the traditions and that religious tradition.
Sure.
And the thing is, we complain, oh, they're all going away. Nobody cares. Well, you get up and you start it, and maybe now another guy will come, and then another lady will come, and we got to do it if we want it to be there.
Well,
So,
exactly. I mean, I think we've been caught up in the too many Chiefs and not enough Indians. Would you say I'm correct in being that? I mean,
oh,
there's not
definitely.
a lot of, a follow up here and everything else where I have talked to you so many times. I don't need a podcast to get your passion and drive. You're always telling me, hey, we're going to do this. I think I'm going to try this. You're not resting on your past laurels. And that's what I love about you is that you're continuously thinking. I've talked to you after an event and you're already thinking of the next event. And that's the beauty of this.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I kind of that way.
I see
I
that.
wish I wasn't, but I mean, I'm kind of under the impression too, the philosophy like build it and they shall come, but somebody's got to build it.
Right.
So we got to do these things. Encouraging, I spoke of Good Friday, and the Italian Good Friday Mass in Melrose Park, Illinois, was filled. The church was filled. There was like 23 Italian societies participating. We had a procession outside, and it was really great. And that's awesome. But I wish there's an Italian Mass there every week in Melrose Park, Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. I wish these 23 societies would come back more often.
Right.
Not just for Good Friday Mass.
Yeah, like that. It doesn't have to be the Good Friday Easter Mass, right? Exactly. Why can't it be the ritual? Exactly.
That's what we got to do. We got to keep coming to things, because if we don't, we have no one to blame but ourselves.
Right.
Okay.
Frank, I want to ask you, let's go back and maybe, of course, we'd have to look it up if there was a way to look it up. Do you think 60, 70 years ago, the Italian here in Chicago, the Italian in New York was much more dedicated than we are now, our era, or no?
Oh, without a doubt, it was more prevalent.
Yeah.
There's no doubt. But it was a prevalence out of, like 60 years ago, we didn't have computers. We didn't have social media. People weren't going in 80,000 directions.
Sure.
5 channels on TV. It was a simpler life. People stayed in neighborhoods, Italian neighborhoods. Now people move away. I like to think of, there's a few reasons for our downfall. One, and I have to be honest, was the lack of an Italian Saturday school. And I go to the Greeks. We all know that the Greeks have Greek school, and maybe growing up, the kids can't stand it, but every adult knows the history, knows the religion, knows the language, and
Yes.
goes, thanks, mom and dad, for sending me, making me go. Polish do the same. We didn't have that. That was a bad thing because we don't keep our history, culture, religion, language. We don't. And I mean, not to sound biased, but I mean, I always say it, for me, it's the most beautiful culture in the world and beautiful language. And there's so much to be proud of, and we don't keep it. And that disheartens me. You know, the 60, 70 years, you know, lack of immigration. People from Italy don't come here no more like they used to. Intermarriage, you divide the bloodlines and neighborhoods. We don't have those neighborhoods where like everybody was Italian. So there's a lot of reasons. And yes, it's different than 1960, 1970, without a doubt. I mean, you remember when you were a kid, like we were proud. I mean, this was, you know, we're proud to be Italian. Kids today, 15-year-olds, 18-year-olds, they're proud, but there's like 52 things in between that they're into. Yeah. We were proud. That was it. We were Italian.
We were Italian, yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I love what you said here at the beginning when you said it's not about going to one of the feasts on Taylor and Loomis or out in Addison having a beef sandwich and putting on the Italian jacket. I mean,
that's not enough.
That's not enough.
It's not enough. That's not enough. We are never going to be 1960 or 70 again. I get that. But as intelligent people, as a community, the wealth in our community, the know-how, we should be. And I'll tell you where I got the idea. I got it from the Jewish people. I'm not going to lie. They have a thing called Birthright Israel.
Okay.
In my mind, I emailed them. And I said, I'm an Italian American in Chicago, and I kind of would just love to get some like feedback and information about how you do this. And they got back to me, and a gentleman gave me the opportunity to do a Zoom meeting.
Wow.
He had nothing to gain. If it was in Italian, they never would have even returned the email, to be honest. And
100%.
For an hour and 10 minutes, I had to stop it because I felt bad, because I just couldn't believe this guy did all this. And long story short, two Jewish gentlemen had this idea about sending young 18 to 26-year-olds to Israel. And a lot of people didn't like it, but the good thing and the thing with these two gentlemen, as opposed to me, they had their own money to put up. Wow. They each put $10 million into it.
Jeez.
Now the budget is like $100 million a year. They've sent 750,000 18 to 26-year-old Jewish kids to Israel for their first trip. Wow. They have statistics about marriage coming out of it, how much, you know, the trip affected. They have all these statistics. And when I heard this, I'm like, that's the answer. This is the answer. Not Zoom meetings, not waving a flag on a college campus. Sure. This is the answer. It's real simple. Get the money together. Get the travel agent. I know this guy on Belmont Avenue in Chicago.
Thank you, Frank.
Always plugging. And it's like, let's do this. Right? Let's do this. Let's make this impact while we still can. And I got to be honest, the higher ups, in nationally speaking, they just ignored me. They don't even, you know, I mean, if you're so into this, don't you want to make this change? Now, you could say, well, that's your opinion, that'll have an impact. You're right, it is my opinion. But I bet you if we put together enough people, there's no way now people aren't going to say a trip to Italy wouldn't affect them.
Exactly. And, you know, you just proved it in this conversation by showing us these examples of this group.
Absolutely. And I mean, I've interviewed people that have told me the same story.
Sure. Let's go to that part. And that's how I opened it up here today. I mean, you are the host of Keeping It Real with Frankie D, an Italian-American podcast. And again, I have to tell you, yep, there it is. Keeping It Real. Everyone, if you can see this here when on our podcast, YouTube, Keeping It Real with Frankie D, which started in 2013. Now I know is the date. So
sir,
I want to ask you, Frank, you've kept it consistent, meaning this. Somebody came up the other day and goes, hey, John, I saw that you interviewed George Notzely. I thought you were just about sports. Or John, I saw you interviewed a journalist. Your thing has been consistent since day one. I know we have two different types of podcasts, but the Keeping It Real with Frankie D, an Italian American podcast with you, what drives you in 2013, Frank DiPiero, to say, okay, I got this, I'm going to do this? What made this idea, and now 10 years of success, what drives you?
Well, I mean, I never was into any of that kind of stuff. And at the at Ridgewood High School in Norwich, where I was a little involved at that time, I was a mentor.
Sure.
We so they had a TV studio, and somebody said, "Wow, you should do a show." I'm like, "Me do a show?" I do like to talk, but I'm like, "Me do a show." So I ended up doing this like a talk show. There was like Johnny Carson, but high school style. Okay, literally, it was
like a sit-in guest next to you.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah, and we had access to this cable once a week, an hour, and the school did. So I'm doing this TV show, which is about the school. But then we also had a radio show. So this guy contacts me. He's like, "Oh, well, you got to do the radio show." Okay. So this gentleman that had worked for a station had all this equipment in his basement, and we taped the radio show. Now, from the first radio show I did, it was Italian. Well, I'll be honest, I'm doing the Italian on this radio show, and then he's putting it on his website. And I'm kind of liking this. And that's where it kind of started. And I think what's just got me through it is just, even if you kind of get tired of it, frustrated, I'm sure you've had where, shows had to be canceled, the equipment wasn't working, you push this button, and what the hell just
got erased.
Right. It's the fact that there's always another story out there that I feel needs to be told to our people. And that's what drives me with the stories. But there's so much now more from this podcast. My son had this idea to do this short video, like a minute video about something Italian, an accomplishment, a story, an invention. So I start doing this thing called Italian American Moment.
Which is basically a spin-off of the podcast, correct?
It's part of the whole Keeping It Real with Frankie D, ItalianAmericanLife.com. I mean, so now I start doing these videos, and I like those because they're like a minute. And, you just compact as much information into this minute, and it's just all good, positive stuff. And then from this ItalianAmericanLife.com and volunteering at Casa Italia Library and the Italian Cultural Center, where we emphasize people writing their stories, and they help them to do that. And I wrote a kid's book. Book. Like, where did this come from? Then I wrote a second kid's book. And I'll be honest, I have a third one written, but it's not completed yet. Then about the time we started the podcast, an Italian club I was in had a monthly dinner. And it was fun. It was great. It was cheap. You're with people. You have a good time. It's in the neighborhood. Club closes. No more dinners. So now, as I do a lot of things, I thought to myself, boy, that was fun. Why can't we do that? Why do I need this club? Probably go to a restaurant, a guy I know. Hey, what if, we put this menu together, how much, We started a dinner. From that dinner in 2013, mind you, 10 years later, it was 3 to 4 times a year. I'm going to be honest. Let's say it's more 2 to 3 times at this point. We meet for these dinners. Now you say, hey, it's a dinner. Who cares? Big deal. Well, yeah and no. It's fun. It's networking. It's promoting Italian American events coming up. It's promoting, a lot of times I bring all these, because I subscribe to everything, newspapers.
Yes, I noticed that, right?
I bring all this stuff, and I say, hey, anybody wants it, please take it. I want to encourage people to be, interested. We have had 5 or 6 raffles over the 10 years. I don't, you can understand me. I don't want to bother people. Whatever the restaurant charges me, that's what I charge the people. So it's just an even exchange.
Right.
I try to keep it down. We have had 5 or 6 raffles to raise money for exclusive Italian causes, just Italian causes. We've given money to the startup of a Italian American Studies program at Loyola University in Chicago.
Right.
Gave money to help run the Festa della Repubblica, which is celebrated in Chicago at Pompey Church. We've given, we have 2 feast bands in Chicago. We have 2, which is amazing because there's only like 5 left in the United States. You know, the bands with the procession and the religious festival, they're awesome. I hear that music, I get pumped. It adds to it. It inspires you. Well, one of the bands, guy tells me he needs like, I don't remember, equipment, hats, something. I go, well, I'll tell you what, we'll have a raffle at we call it Little Italy Cenetta. Little dinner. You know what? You've been there from the beginning.
Yes.
We raised money for the guy's band. We had a raffle. Here's the money. So we had an Italian community mass we raised money from. And just last year, we started doing something that I just love it. I make these plaques with our little logo, and it's a surprise.
Yes.
I kind of, my finagling kind of way, make sure that person's going to be at the dinner. And it's a total surprise. And it's just people that do good things for the Italian community, for their club, just unsung heroes that don't get honored. It's not about a gala, a dinner dance, selling ads, selling tables. We're not selling anything. And I love it. And the first time I gave it to these 2 volunteers at the Italian Cultural Center. And then the last dinner we had, we gave it to 2 more people. And I have files. I have lots of files and papers all over the place. No, and I have names of potential people because I love doing that.
But here again is that theme of you. You're always thinking of what to do next. And when you implemented that 2 Cenettas ago, and I got to tell you, I talked to Luke Capuano, who you gave an award to 2.5 weeks ago at the last Cenetta. He says to me, John, because I've been bugging him about being in the Italian Hall of Fame. It's no secret that I've been bugging him. He says, John, something what Frankie DiPiero did for me here tonight, this was his exact words, means more to me than an Italian Hall of Fame. And you know what? I mean, I had goosebumps when he said that, because, you know, he's just such a proud,
yes, what a great guy. Man. And I meant it. What a great man, great heart. Yeah. And the other gentleman that I gave the plaque to, who's not as known, we know him at the Italian Culture Center. What a nice man who came from Italy 3 years ago, was a career military man in Italy, lived his whole life in Italy. The only reason he came here was he met an American woman in Italy. They got married. That American woman lived in Italy for 34 years.
Wow.
So after he retired, they're like, let's come here. I don't know if they're going to stay. I don't know what their plans are. But this older gentleman, late in life, comes to move to America in Chicago. He's looking online. He finds this Casa Italia, Italian Cultural Center. I even said, I go, did you call or make an appointment? He goes, no, I just went there. He's been coming ever since. When he gets there, the moment he gets there, he starts working, fixing things, cleaning things, looking to see if there's any, problems in the building. What a great guy. I mean, like, this guy just gives from his heart, and he adds so much to us because he's fresh Italian. You know what I mean? So yeah, I love doing that. And I'm going to tell you something that I've done that really basically nobody knows about. With my mind, I had an idea. And I came up with I created something. And these things here.
Oh, wow. What are those?
My logo. These are playing cards. I have created the first ever deck of playing cards, 52 cards, 2 jokers, dedicated to Italian American accomplishments.
Wow. Look at that. Oh, my God.
Jacuzzi. Each card, that's the Jacuzzi. This is the Piccirilli brothers. Wow. They created the Lincoln Monument, Washington, D.C. And let me tell you something. 1 year ago, almost to these days, I went for the first time in my life, to Washington, D.C. I always kind of wanted to go there.
Sure.
And ironically, I went to our capital because my wife is a member of a group called Comites.
Comites, yes. And we're
Which
speaking of Frank's wife, Ivana DiPiero, who's been in our community for a very long time. Ivana DiPiero Hair Studio. And this is who Frank is talking about, his lovely wife, Ivana.
Thank you. And she is a member of this Comites, which is an elected group of Italian citizens that represent Italian citizens in every council general's office. So throughout the United States, I think there's like maybe 12 or 13 council generals. So like, for example, the council general in Chicago is responsible for 11 states. So unfortunately, if you live 8 hours outside of Chicago, you may have to go to Chicago for your passport and all that and drive the 8 hours.
Sure.
They don't have these offices. So Comites had this big meeting there at the Italian embassy. So I got to go to DC. So I got to see the Lincoln Monument. Oh. And when I tell you, John, what a sight, what a sight. Structure. And these gentlemen, these 6 brothers from Massa in Toscana.
Is that pronounced Piccirilli?
Piccirilli.
Piccirilli, yes. The Piccirilli.
So each card is a different.
Oh, Marciano.
Show
Frank,
you.
I love it already. I love it already.
And I tell you, John, I spent a lot of time picking 54, picking, you know, I wanted to get a certain amount of women. It's not 54 cards of, you know, your favorite mobster actors. It's not crap. I'm sorry. This is 54. I wanted to go across the board.
Those are 54 of some of the greatest Italian people ever.
Italian American achievements. Now, what I did was, if they could have been born in Italy, but they did stuff here. So in other words, you know, I'm not just picking like, you know, Luciano Pavarotti.
Got it.
I mean, he's Italian. He lived in Italy. Tremendous man. But so it's more, there's symbolism for here. So basically, it's all over the spectrum. There's some entertainers. There's some athletes. There's some politicians. There's some scientists. There's some inventors. There's some businessmen. There's some of everything. Women, men. If they were born in Italy, I wrote where they were born in Italy. If their name was changed, like a Dean Martin, I wrote his real birth name. Okay. Anne Bancroft, the Academy Award winning actress.
Yes, from The Graduate.
And her name is, at birth, Anna Maria Italiano.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
What a beautiful name, right?
What a beautiful lady. Yes.
Yes. So, I mean, I really, when I tell you I went back and forth, you know, writing, and then you got this little bit of real estate to actually write these sentences on. So you can only fit so much information, and, you know, who to pick. I picked the brain of one friend. He gave me a couple suggestions. You know, I looked them up. Oh my God, it took a long time, and I'm really proud of it. And I'm going to try to get this out there. It's, you know, I'm not a smart man, and I don't know. Well, I don't know technology. I don't know modern things. I don't know shipping and this and that. So this is like kind of out of my realm, but I'm working on it, and I'm going to get that out there.
But I mean, what a tremendous thing. And I got to tell you, thank you so much for bringing that onto the podcast, because this is probably the first time
I kid you not that is a secret.
Like, yeah, I mean, fantastic. I just
almost nobody knows about
the few that I saw. I got to ask you a couple of things before we kind of close it off here. I could be on here with you for 2 hours, and I would love to do a part 2 with you.
Absolutely.
Let's go back to the podcast, and I want to speak a little bit about the Italian American moments that you do. Frank, I'm going to give you a chance here. Are there a couple of podcasts or a couple Italian American moments that kind of like when you interviewed that person or whatever it was that you talked about, where when you went back to watch the interview or when you went back to see the 1 minute moment, you were like, wow, you know, is there something that kind of stands out that keeps the drive going? Do you remember a couple of them?
To be honest, I mean, quite a few.
Yeah,
quite a few. I mean, there's just so many.
I mean, can you mention a couple that really kind of like just even? I'll give you a couple.
For sure. Okay, I did
because I love them. I love them. I love them.
Thank you. I did a podcast. I came across a lady on LinkedIn. She has a little Italian school in Australia. I sent her an email. I figure I'm not going to hear from her. She writes back to me. Lo and behold, we end up doing an interview, 13-hour difference. She's in Australia. I'm in Chicago. She has this school, teaches kids the language, culture. She takes tours back. She's from Molise, and she takes tours back from Australia there. What a nice lady. I came across a story, the Joevaldi story. So if I remember everything, blew my mind. Joevaldi came from Italy like age 12, 13. I'm talking like maybe 1920-ish.
20s.
So, when everybody was poor, they did, no education. Somehow, from coming at age 12, 13, he's a freshman at Notre Dame University, which I don't even know how that happens because everything, the language barrier, the intelligence factor, the grading, money.
Sure.
But so the guy worked with either his father or his uncle doing hard labor. Well, he's built like a Roman god. He's a human man that's built like a sculpture of he has muscles upon muscles. So long story short, I interview his grandson. His grandfather played football at the University of Notre Dame for Newt Rockne.
Oh, wow. The legendary coach.
The legendary coach. The famous win one for the Gipper story?
Yes.
He's in the locker room.
Wow.
He's an All-American. I mean, this is crazy. I mean, here's an Italian immigrant that was in the football team at University of Notre Dame, was in those years. He became a wrestler. The United States government used him in the war because he spoke Italian and dialects, and he was like a spy. He ends up being like a teacher and a mentor at his older age. I mean, what a fascinating, incredible story.
And especially, like you're saying, Frank, especially for that era.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Not too long ago, I interviewed a gentleman who was a retired doctor, pathologist. He was Abruzzese from New York State. Now he lives in Arizona. Started writing books. Like, I love these overachiever people. I mean, he was a doctor. Now he's an author. You know what I mean? It's great. The boy in Abruzzo. Nice story. Sad story, but somewhat true. World War II in Abruzzo. Was ugly. It was terrible, but very good book. Nice gentleman, just a nice gentleman. It's a pleasure to do the interview and to get to know these people. You know what I mean? There's so many. As far as moments, Anthony Rossi. Anthony Rossi started Tropicana products, Tropicana orange juice. He came up with a pasteurization process so fresh orange juice could be sold all over the country. He was an immigrant from Sicily. A.P. Giannini. Amadeo Pietro Giannini started Banco d'Italia, Bank of Italy, which became Bank of America. He personally started so many modern banking techniques. He loaned money to the middle class, the poor, when they didn't get loans. Only the rich got loans. That meant the rich got richer and the poor stayed poor. He saved San Francisco after the earthquake. He bailed out Walt Disney. He just these are like icons. And then one more, because you're probably getting tired of listening to me.
No, I'm not.
There's a max on the stove, okay? There's a max. The time, it's going tick, 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 tick. I came across this story, and I'll tell you how I came across it. See, my eyes are open. My ears are open. I'm very observant. I'm on the social medias. I get the newspapers. I get the magazines. I talk to people. People send me suggestions. Couple of twins. That's probably the wrong thing. You don't say a couple of twins. Twins, because if they're twins, there is a couple, right? How stupid. Yeah. Twins come to the Italian Cultural Center to volunteer. Really nice sisters, beautiful women. Chicago girls from the neighborhood, Jefferson Park. When they found out what I did, they gave me a couple of suggestions. They go, Simon Rodia, Watts Tower. I go, what? Simon Rodia, Watts Tower. I don't know Watts Tower. What is this? I looked it up. There should be a movie about this man. So I was, this is where I am a little bit of a freak. I was giddy writing this moment about this Simon Rodia because what he did was amazing. So super short story for a long one. Italian immigrant, hardly any education, ends up in California, buys this shack. I wouldn't even say a house, a shack. And it was like on a triangle shaped lot in Watts. Well, I have heard of Watts, like it's really not a good area.
Yeah.
So this is years ago, though, obviously. Well, he was inspired by the greats, Galileo, Michelangelo, and he wanted to do something big. So he was like a tile guy by trade. So by himself, this 5'2" immigrant starts finding garbage, pieces of glass, pieces of broken tiles, wire, steel, just crap. He starts building a structure, like a tower. And by himself for 32 years. No power equipment, no scaffolding, no ladder.
Just Armstrong.
Armstrong, hammer, chisel, bucket, a couple other things.
Sure.
He would build like a level, climb. When it dried, he'd climb up it and build the next. He built like 3 or 4 towers. The tallest one is 100 feet high over 32 years by himself. So he basically just like donated it.
Wow.
Well, a few years later, from the videos I've seen, like the city wanted to condemn it. They wanted to just either move it or, so they're like, oh no, it's dangerous. So they brought like stuff, their equipment to test it. It was built like Fort Knox. To this day, the Watts Towers, there's actually a statue to the guy. I want to go there and take a picture. There's a statue to the guy. There's a plaque. He has inspired people in a human sense, artistic sense. And to be honest, it's mainly like, from what I gather, like a lot of Hispanic and African Americans that he's inspired, because it wasn't it was that kind of area. But what an incredible, amazing story that I want every Italian American, all 17 million of us in the United States, to know this story. Now, unfortunately, my moments do not get 17 million views, okay? I wish they did, not for me, for this gentleman, okay? And I wish that when we bitch and complain about, mob movies and all this other crap, why don't we, with all this power and wealth and know-how and filmmakers, make a documentary about this gentleman to put it out there? Amazing story. So I love to do those kind of things. I really, really do.
And it shows.
Unfortunately, though, I can say this, I don't know how to do anything with the computer. That's a problem.
You do a good job.
I bugged the crap out of my son, and God bless him, because I couldn't do this without him, because, like I said,
we're talking about Rocco DiPiero's son and his
my son Rocco.
Your other, let's not forget your beautiful daughter, Marcella.
Yes, that's my family. So thank you.
Listen, I'm going to have to close you off here for a few minutes, but I do want to say something about you as I close it off, because I think we're going to have to do a part 2, because there were so many things that I would have liked to have touched on here with you today. Of course, I want to talk to you more about the Balbo Monument, that you've been always an active supporter of that. Of course, being involved with the Festival della Repubblica, of course, doing this Italian, the Italian Cinetta that you do is amazing. But I want to read something that caught my eye early on when I did a little research on you. And this is how I want to end it with you tonight. This is more than a podcast, your podcast. It truly is. It truly is. It is a movement to bring Italian Americans together, united, knowledgeable about their past accomplishments. What you just talked about here for the last 10, 15 minutes, our traditions, our culture, our unique individual stories, but also perhaps the most important issue is to bring the awareness to youth and to educate them for the future of Italian America. The future, Frank says, is the concern that he holds dear to his height. Frank DiPiero, you keep doing what you're doing because this is fantastic. It's all I needed to read was those first 2 sentences, and I had my podcast. I love you, Frank, and I
Well,
really
John, thank you
appreciate-
so much, and thank you, for supporting me and all the things, and you always come and you add to it because wherever you go, you add. You don't subtract.
Yeah, thank
You're an
you.
addition.
Thank
You're an
you.
addition. You're a plus sign. You're not a minus.
Okay, good. Yeah, you've been a great friend to me, and I'll tell you, you gave me the drive to start my podcast, and I want to have you back on here.
Thank you for this opportunity, and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing great things, and I would love to be back anytime.
You got it. And to our audience, this will be out on YouTube probably in the next week, so you'll be able to see Frank. And he mentioned so many great things here tonight that I'm excited to rewatch this myself. Frank DiPiero, good night, and thank you.
Thank you, John. God bless you.